anything to get away from that freaking football game yesterday.
From what?
We're in Philly, so we
Oh yeah, disgusting.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, the garbage time king. That guy, it's amazing.
Oh yeah.
I saw best in the game, right? Best fourth quarter stats, right? All his stats are coming there.
Everything, yeah, it's amazing.
Worked for us.
Yeah.
If I was allowed to play the second half like DraftKings tournaments on DraftKings, you know how they have the second half ones?
Yeah.
I would play Jalen Hurts every single week.
We can't play those here in PA?
No. We can't bet college props. We can't do that. We can't play college DFS, and you can't do halftime DFS for some stupid reason.
Yeah, not having college props is brutal here.
Yeah.
Welcome in. It's the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show on the Awesemo Fantasy Football Channel, powered by Yahoo. We have some great things that we're going to tell you all about here, not only on our channel, but also with Yahoo. And we're going to dive into what just happened week 7, what to do week 8, some start, sits, buy low, sell high. I want to make sure that I get that phrase correct. Myself, Lofty's in the house, and Dave, we get to welcome one of our newest members here of the Awesemo family, and Tera Roberts joining us as well here on the Fantasy Football Show. Awesome to have you, Tera. Welcome. You'll fit right in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this as well. Eytan, I missed last week's show because as we were about to go live, I get a call from this is you're a first-time dad, right?
Yes.
Tera's got 2 kids, a little older than us. Tera, I actually have Eytan has the youngest kid here, so he gets it. But I get a call from daycare. Well, from my wife, she's at work, and it's there's hand, foot, and mouth, and Jordan just threw up all of her peas, and I don't know what to do. So yeah, it was like 1:59, I think, and I was like, well, I gotta go, fellas. But you guys held it down.
We did. And I'm just scared because I know it's like looking into the future, Tera, all the shit that Lofty has to deal with and go through and learn as a first-time parent. He's a couple of months, as he said, down the line. So I'm looking into this like this is my future. And I feel like Lofty and I are similar in our demeanor and just who we are. So how he interacts and reacts to stuff, I'm thinking like, oh, this is coming. This is coming.
I'm too laid back for Justine though. She's fine. She'll be all right. The temperature's only 101.8. That's barely a fever, but I don't know. What about Tera? Are you more of a helicopter mom, or are you laid back?
Once you get to the second one, you lay back and relax. You get you have the daycare saved, and as soon as I get that phone call, I'm like, oh my god, is it a sick call or a hurt call? You get the sick call, that's the oh no. You get the hurt call, you're like, okay, he'll fine. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, because that's what you always hear, right? And I have 2 nieces now through my marriage with my wife, her sister, and they say the same thing, and I can even see it. Where it's like the youngest will bounce off the table, run into the wall. They don't even turn their heads. I'm thinking if my son did that, my wife would be going crazy. Absolutely crazy. Unbelievable. That's great, though. Just good to know. See, Lawful, you have something to look forward to. Come the second one, all of your laid back demeanor is going to come into play then. So
yeah, listen, we're not talking about a second one quite yet. Let's hold off.
Me neither. Me neither, by all means. All right, so let's jump into it. The 3 of us now. We have a lot to look at over the past week, from MVPs to MFPs, and appreciate it because I think we were saying the wrong F last week when you were
frustrating.
Out, right? Okay, frustrating. We had FU, but I guess that was wrong too.
That makes sense. I mean, look, for most frustrating player, we're talking about players that we really liked this week, right? Like players that we anticipated to perform well. Forgettable players it's kind of tough because there's a lot of forgettable performances each week, but we've got some today where it's just like, you loved them. They were in great spots and they just, once again, failed to come through. And there might be a few players right now, and we'll talk about them, that I'm willing to close the book or the casket really on them, at least for this year, because it's getting ugly out there in Chicago, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, let's jump in. Tera, why don't you kick things off? your week 7, Lofty, you'll jump into, and then I can round out. We'll bounce to the MFPs as well. Your week 7 MVP.
My week 7 MVP, it's got to be Tua. Especially with all the Deshaun Watson trade rumors that have been coming through and keep popping up, you got to feel bad for him. And so the performance that he had, especially off of the big flash Deshaun trade rumor right at the end of last week, I'm just thinking, good for him. Poor Tua. We have to constantly hear that he's the problem. They want Deshaun, so much slander. And I'm so happy. He isn't Justin Herbert, but he's getting them by. The problem is more so with the organization. I mean, Tua was 32 of 40 for 291 yards, multiple touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So it was a little, shaky, but little work on the ground as well. And I know it's against Atlanta, but and he's got Buffalo coming up as well. So yeah, you're going to have to bench him there. But moving forward, as long as he doesn't get traded, as the rumors say, I'm feeling good about him. So yay for Tua. Happy for him.
Yeah, with Tua, it's crazy because as an Eagles fan, and I won't get into the too far into this Eytan. We need a whole show to talk about yesterday's game, but as an Eagles fan, I'm rooting for the Dolphins to be awful, even though I'm a big Brian Flores fan. I loved him as their coach and he's let me down, but they're 1-6 now and they're trending towards, they don't have their first. So Eagles might have their first round pick, which is like a top 5, which is lovely, but there's no doubt that watching Tua, I mean, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So you look at Mike Gesicki now, and Mike Gesicki is producing solid numbers. You have to love seeing that. And when Devontae Parker comes back, there's that. Will Fuller still on the IR, but as of now, Mike Gesicki, a guy that I was worried about coming into this year, has certainly benefited from injuries to the wide receiving core, but he's having killer games. And, you just have to keep riding that as long as Tua can keep playing.
Absolutely. Saw that even with Gaskin for me. A couple of grabs, touchdown as well. And you're right. The trickle-down effect from Tera's MVP here, you're starting to see it. And the reality is you just have to worry about a trade at this point. And it's not play. It's just the trade. All right, Lofty, who's your guy?
Listen, usually I try and go a little bit off the board, but I can't because Cooper Kupp has been that good.
Yes.
I mean, when you look at how he has produced week after week, first of all, he's the wide receiver 1 by a wide margin on the season. Granted, they've had no bye weeks yet, but get this. Do you know how many weeks he has multiple touchdowns this season?
So I do, only because he's on my Awesemo League team and I have his game log up here, but it's outlandish, the number.
4.
Yeah.
4. He has multiple touchdowns in over half of his games this year. It's insane. He had 2 underwhelming weeks. And outside of those 2 weeks, he's been the wide receiver 1, 2, 5, and 7. So essentially, Cooper Kupp is, as a buddy of mine put it the other day, it's like the Michael Thomas from 2019. Not exactly the same player, but dominant red zone threat, gets open every single route he runs. And unlike Michael Thomas, Matthew Stafford's actually targeting him once in a while on the deep ball. He leads the league in red zone targets, red zone touchdowns, targets inside the 10, touchdowns inside the 10. If you drafted Cooper Kupp, mind you were taking him after Robert Woods, usually in the 4th round. You've got a guy that is going to win your leagues for you this year if he continues at this pace, and I don't see why he wouldn't.
And it's crazy because, Robert Woods was the guy that everyone was on preseason.
Yes.
So where you got Cooper Kupp in value is insane. I see all those teams just sailing to victory right now.
Tara, are you giving up on Robert Woods yet? Or is this somebody that you're still holding out hope for? Because it's such a tough decision for me.
It is. I'm still holding on just out of pure volume. And then if you look at the schedule as well, I mean, it's not like they've got a struggle schedule whatsoever. So there's plenty of opportunity there. You just have to kind of lower your expectations. I don't think it's going to flip moving forward. I think this is what it is, but he's still very usable to me in this landscape.
Yeah. Speaking of win your league and getting him, drafting him when you did with Kupp, add Mike Evans to the team, because that's what I'm dealing with each and every week and why I'm running through this Awesemo C League. They thought that I was an easy mark, Tera. They could put me in the C League here. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But no, Mike Evans, and here's why, and I'm going full on chalk, But here's why. It's not even so much of the 3 touchdowns off 6 grabs. It's that you don't have Antonio Brown, you don't have Rob Gronkowski, and still it's Tom Brady, who has shown that he can frustrate the hell out of any fantasy owner, and that he'll move the ball and hit Cameron Brate for 2 TDs in a situation like that. Evans was a monster, and an opening for him to take full advantage of it. I go back to week 1, week 2, people asking, what to do. Me being one of them, he's an absolute machine, and it was refreshing to see him dominate without AB and without Gronk on there. So he's my MVP as well. Him and Kupp are killing it for me.
Yeah, he's on pace for over 50 touchdowns, Tom Brady is, and Mike Evans has 3 games of 2+ touchdowns. So you have 2 guys on your team that have 7 multiple touchdown games through the first 7 weeks, Eytan. I'd say you're doing okay.
Not bad. Not bad. I won't tell you my draft grade. That's a different story.
No, I've told you this before, man. When you draft on Yahoo, you want the worst possible draft grade. Right. You want them to give you an F because Yahoo draft grades are terrible. They're terrible. So if you've got an F, or whenever I get that D-, at first I'm a little bit pissed off because I'm like, what do they know? And then you realize it's going to be the best season you've had.
Yes,
I love it. I'm going to take that to heart. All right, let's swing it back. Sarah, who's your most frustrating player this week?
Oh man. So I'm kind of on the opposite end of Stafford, of Cooper Kupp. The most frustrating player for me was Darrell Henderson. Detroit is horrific against the run. And I did kind of think that it was going to be like, I had to have known that, yes, it was going to be Matt Stafford revenge game, Sean McVay revenge game as well. But I expected a little bit more from him, being that Detroit's run defense is so terrible. It's 15 carries for 45 yards on the ground, 3 of 6 through the air for only 19. It's kind of crazy that that's what we got in such a potent game. Although I do, it's not something that concerns me. I'm still all in and loving Henderson moving forward as my lucky replacement there with the Akers injury. But yeah, it was not what I was looking for out of him.
Honestly, that is, like, I want to say that's the only right answer of the week. There's some good answers, but that's the right answer of the week. He played 88% of snaps. Sony Michel had 0.4 fantasy points. So it's not even like he cannibalized Darrell Henderson. He just didn't get there. I mean, look at another one too out there in Tennessee. Who would have thought that the Tennessee Titans rout the Chiefs and Derrick Henry has his worst performance of the year? It's just a strange sport, but Derrick Henry struggled. Darrell Henderson was on the field for almost every snap, and somehow they couldn't get him. I mean, I was so frustrated seeing him throw to Cooper Kupp at 1st and goal at the 1-yard line.
Oh, same.
Oh, it was awful. You're like, okay, here it is. This is the touchdown. At least they got a Devontae Booker touchdown late in the game. I mean, that helped. But Eytan, my most frustrating player is a group of them, and it's in the same game that Derrick Henry struggled, the Chiefs offense. I mean, if anyone would have told you in a game with the highest total of the season at 57.5 that they would fail to score a single touchdown, you wouldn't believe it. Now, Patrick Mahomes got his neck and head bent back. It was ugly. The guy did not know where he was for a minute there, but that was after the fact. I mean, they were already toast. It was late in the 4th quarter. There was nothing left. And you've got the announcer going, well, we're not in desperation time yet. Meanwhile, they're down like 25 with 3 minutes left on the clock. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, insanely frustrating. Now, I played against them in a lot of season-long leagues, so I was pretty happy about it. But all in all, you have to at some point start to or begin to wonder, like, is this team going to continue to struggle? Their defense is terrible. Are they forced to run a different style of offense because they've trailed in most games at some point that they've played this season, a handful of them by 14+ points. So ultimately, you're running them out every single week. It makes no difference what happened in week 7. But, man, they stunk it up last week. And when you looked at that game on the schedule, you're saying, I'm going to win my week just because of Kelce or because of Hill or because of my Hill and Mahomes combination. Yeah. And they lost it for you.
Yeah, and it was highly concerning because what could have changed with Tennessee's defense from a week ago, where there were legitimately 3 receivers from Buffalo that were almost all at 100 yards and multiple touchdowns. So you just expected more. I had Hardman as someone who was a good value play for me, and that did not pan out at all. So it's just, not a lot of good things coming out of that offense.
That's a great point, because I think the difference, right, from like a bet versus looking at it from a DFS standpoint would be you saw 3 guys on Buffalo eat, and then look at this offense with Kansas City. That's an easy connection that I think it was right to make in the jump, even though it failed for anybody banking on the Chiefs. Look, I'm not here to pat my own back, Lofty, but I'll go back to when you and Rasa were making fun of me for placing a wager. When was this? On October 17th for the Chiefs not to make the playoffs. Oh, no, you're an idiot. You're an idiot.
Nobody called you an idiot. Will you stop? What I said was,
I saw your face though, Tara. You like that balance?
Yeah.
What I said was they were still minus 450 to make the playoffs at the top. That's all. That's all I was saying. But I may have thought you were an idiot. I just didn't say it out loud.
Well, you've said it before though, so maybe you just thought,
no,
why
I have
repeat
not.
yourself?
No, I haven't. You might be right about this though. I have multiple side bets with friends that said they wouldn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Super Bowl hangover. I was like, all right, here come the casuals. Let's take their money. And now look at me. But that's all right. Won a big bet off of Ben last year that Brady would have over 23 touchdown passes, and he had like 108. So, we'll take that to the bank. It gives me some pride in knowing that I'm not losing all of them, Eytan. But I'll say this much: I still think they make the playoffs.
It's a task by all means. I don't mean to derail and go into Chiefs futures here, but just it's not locked in either way. I think at this point.
What do you think? What do you guys think their odds are to make the playoffs?
I'd say it's down to 300, 280.
You think 300? Okay, so you still think they're heavy favorites to make the playoffs?
It's Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. It's not their fault that Steve Spagnuolo forgot how to coach.
What do you think they're at, Tara?
No, I would agree. I think it's fixable. It's not like they've had a bunch of injuries. They just need to get on the right track. So they've got the pieces. They just got to get there.
Minus 200. So
wow.
It's moved, but
a lot.
It's definitely moved a lot, but it's still 67% implied odds to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So real quick, I want to throw mine out, and it's more of inquisitive, and it's more to pose this question to both of you about really what to do here. And I don't know what to do because I don't know if there's an easy answer here. A lot of it is circumstantial. Antonio Gibson is playing through a shin injury. He's also playing on a team that's not great. He's also playing on a team where the quarterback and coach, rightfully so, like to throw to another guy that can take away looks and opportunity. He, at the other hand, from draft stock to what he's been able to do on his better days, is not somebody that I'm just going to cut. But once again, I due to circumstance, I have to roster him each and every week, every now and again with a bye. But I just don't know what to do. Am I SOL? Am I stuck with Antonio Gibson moving forward and just hoping that he can play through an injury and not get touches vultured from McKissick?
Yeah, the unfortunate part about it is it's not like it's something that he can sit down for a week or two and rest. It is what it is, and this is it moving forward. So yeah, I mean, he's got the touchdown upside, so you just kind of have to hope for that. But I think this type of production right here is probably as good as it's going to get.
Yeah. So, okay, a couple things. And I agree with you, Tara. You just kind of have to ride it out at this point because the volume is still there, but you're dealing with a stress fracture in your shin.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys watched any of that game, but it felt like Washington spent the entire game in the red zone and came away with nothing. Like their only touchdown was the Terry McLaurin 48-yard score. I swear every time, like I got the 2 TV setups, so I have red zone on the Eagles or whatever other game was on. And every time I saw the Washington football team, they were in the red zone. And every single time they made a boneheaded mistake that resulted in them not scoring. So that could have been like a 2-touchdown game from Antonio Gibson, which he did not long ago. What was it? 2 games ago, 1 game ago, or 2 games ago where he had 2 rushing touchdowns.
Right. It's been hit or miss.
Yeah. You pretty much have to ride it out. If you have better options, sure. But if Antonio Gibson's facing the Detroit Lions, I'm playing him in every team I have him. So for me, it's matchup dependent.
Yeah, a couple games back, by the way. It's October 10th.
Yeah, 3 games ago.
Right.
Yeah. He got hurt on,
All right. Let's look at a couple of injuries. And my goodness, you talk about, by the way, hit that thumbs up button, please. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed here to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Click that link below for $10 free for a Yahoo contest, and new Yahoo users are going to get 1 month of Awesemo Plus Platinum free upon your first deposit and contest entry. We don't ask much in return, right? Just hit that thumbs up button and push that subscribe button as well. it's crazy because as obvious as it's been a talking point around the country, it's been one here as well, Tara, in Philly, where it's like, dude, run the ball, right? Nick Sirianni, run the freaking football. It shouldn't be that difficult. He finally runs the football. He finally runs Miles Sanders, and then down goes Sanders. And it looks like right now he could be out for the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got such bad luck, unfortunately. And really, when you look at it, he's highly talented. I'm someone who's kind of been on the fade Miles Sanders train for a while now. And it's never because of the talent. I mean, it's there. It's just because of the usage. They just organizationally don't understand how to handle a talented running back. But again, this is such a frustrating injury. I think I talk about it a little bit more once I get to my waiver wire pickups, little preview, Kenneth Gainwell. But I hated to see that injury. Hated it.
I've been on the wrong side of this one because I've been so enamored with his skill, I think, that it clouded my judgment when it came to their usage of him. And like, even if you look at last year, right, he had almost 1,100 yards from scrimmage and he played 12 games. He had 3 of the Eytan. I've rattled this off a million times, but he had 3 of the 10 longest runs in the NFL last year. And he did so against really good defenses, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and New Orleans. The truth is that he's supremely talented, and they have no idea how to use him, or they just refuse to because they think throwing 100 times a game is good. And it's not. The one touchdown drive that wasn't garbage time that they had was running the ball early and often to Miles Sanders yesterday.
Thank you.
That was the only competent drive that I remember seeing from them that wasn't in the fourth quarter in weeks. Okay. I guess you could include Kansas City, but their defense is so bad it doesn't even count. So ultimately, it's really unfortunate what we've seen out of Miles Sanders. He's still, again, almost averaging 5 yards per carry this season because he's good. And I'll take my lumps. I'll take my L on that, but it's not for lack of skill. Now, what comes into play is what do they do in the backfield with him out? Because what they're considering it now is an ankle sprain, which is serious, but not too serious. So I'm assuming with their bye not being till late in the year that he could miss 3 weeks.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. Jordan Howard, right, called up, I would imagine, from the practice squad. You have Boston Scott behind Kenny Gainwell. I know I and Tara are going to talk about Kenny coming up. Kenneth, when did that change back to Kenneth? It was Kenneth and then Kenny, and then all of a sudden it changed back to Kenneth.
I know. And before that, it was Joe.
Was it? Oh, yeah, that's right.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm joking. All right, so same game. Real quick, though, just to marry both of your points together, you know that phrase, 2 wrongs don't make a right. I think you can have 2 rights exist. Like, I think you can have 2 rights continue to make a right. I think you're both right. Lofty, you're not wrong in what you've looked at, which is the talent. It's impossible to ignore Miles Sanders' talent. But Tara, you're spot on with the volume and just how, I hate to say it, idiotic, stupid, unprepared, ignorant this head coach is and refusing to use him. So it's maddening whenever you have a situation like this where you have a talented young man in this game that's not being utilized the right way, or in this case with Sanders at all. Now, let's look at the other side here. Jacobs goes down. Didn't matter for the Raiders. They got more out of Drake than the Eagles got out of everybody on the other side. But what happens now with Josh Jacobs? Terry, you could start. What happens now with Jacobs now moving forward?
So apparently the injury isn't serious, but to that point, how many coaches have we heard this year say it's not serious? And then we've got like a 3 to 4 week time period where they're not on IR, but it is serious enough to keep them out for multiple games. So to that degree, I think we have to go ahead and prepare, that maybe he's got the bye week. So maybe he's got that, baked into that 2-week schedule, But yeah, I would go ahead and jump and prepare that maybe it might be Peyton Barber time. Don't super prioritize it, but you're probably not going to have to spend a lot to get him. So that's the whole point, if you have the ability, kind of back way, stash that and look and see, because when Josh Jacobs goes down, it's literally a 1-for-1 replacement right there. Now, they have figured out apparently how to use Kenyon Drake a little bit better. The beginning of the season, it was kind of crazy how they had someone who was paid so much and really truly wasn't actually getting utilized in a proper way. But to that extent, I think the Raiders will be fine without him. I think they've got the pieces to be okay moving forward. But I do think we'll have good value out of both Kenyon Drake and Peyton Barber if he's out.
Yeah, I mean, this is a weird one because you don't hear about chest injuries very often. It's kind of hard for me, who has zero knowledge in terms of medical insight, what the time frame of this is going to look like. So I really have no idea. But was Peyton Barber inactive yesterday, or did he just not? Yeah. He was inactive, right?
Healthy and active.
So he was inactive. You assume they make him active if Jacobs is out. But like Tara said, they have the week 8 bye. If you didn't have a week 8 bye, I'd be all over scooping up either of these guys, depending on how deep your league is. I like Kenyon Drake a little bit more just because, of course, keep in mind, when you look at inactives, Peyton Barber was inactive because Josh Jacobs is the bell cow on the ground.
Right.
Just because he was inactive doesn't mean that he's going to be, a non-factor if Jacobs misses time, because Kenyon Drake was active more for a pass catching role and then to spell him. You don't need to have 3 guys in the backfield when one of them is expected to get all of the carries. So I would assume, like you said, that Peyton Barber does get mixed in, probably get some goal line opportunities. But at the same time, I do like the fact that Kenyon Drake has the upside in the passing game. So if I'm in PPR leagues, I have no problem looking to him at all. He's got rushing touchdowns in back-to-back weeks too, which I don't hate. 3 touchdowns, as a matter of fact, over his last 2 games, because he caught one against the Denver Broncos. So yeah, I like Kenyon Drake. Should we talk about, I know we're doing waiver wire in a bit, but since we talked about Sanders, should we maybe cover that backfield
with Gainwell?
Yeah. Well, I think the Boston Scott thing is really interesting.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Like Kenny Gainwell is the guy that got 8 targets yesterday, but Boston Scott had a goal line carry and a touchdown. Kenny Gainwell had the receiving touchdown on the first drive when they took Sanders out, who was still healthy at the time. But if you're in a league where Kenneth Gainwell isn't on the wire, and I would assume that's going to be a lot of them, hell, you have to, I think you have to be looking at somebody like Boston Scott. If he's out, he was out there for 40% of the snaps after Miles Sanders went down. Now, granted, they were playing from behind, so Kenneth Gainwell getting all of that work is going to be seeing more of the field. But Tara, they have the Lions next week. I mean, it's really not out of the question that Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, knowing that Sanders is not going to play, could both have decent games in a flex spot as bye week fillers.
Yeah, I don't hate it. If you can't get Gainwell, for me, Gainwell is priority. If you can't get him, I can see where you add Boston Scott. The only thing is, do we trust the Eagles to decide to finally utilize it back correctly? And Boston Scott is, I mean, he's not Miles Sanders in terms of talent.
No, not at all.
So yeah, I worry if they're going to commit to actually going forward with the run, then I can see the sub end of Boston Scott. I just don't know if I trust them to that extent. So I prioritize Gainwell.
So do that Shannon Sharp gif.
Yeah.
Nope. 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 It's not going to happen.
But here's the
promise you that.
Here's the thing, right? This is what I'm saying. Okay. Kenneth Gainwell, clear priority in the backfield. There's no doubt about it. And you want that pass catching upside. But with Boston Scott, let's just say they actually, and don't forget this either. The Detroit Lions, despite somehow not getting carved up by Henderson, and that's the one issue with the Lions, is that they're so bad everywhere that there will be some games where teams can just wreck them through the air. But they've allowed 6 receiving touchdowns to running backs too, and 6 rushing touchdowns. They're awful against running backs in both phases of the offense. So if you're in a deep league, or you're even in a 12-team league, maybe you own Christian McCaffrey, or Barkley's not back and you couldn't get Devontae Booker, or Josh Jacobs is somebody you have and it's week 8 and he's on a bye, or he wouldn't play anyway. I could go down the list of injured running backs. Kareem Hunt being another one. He was the RB6 before he went down. There's so many injured backs. So even though there's only 2 teams on a bye for week 8, if you're struggling in a flex spot or a league where you have 2 flex spots and need to fit somebody in against the worst team in terms of fantasy points allowed up until yesterday against running backs, I would have no problem with getting Boston Scott, and you're probably getting him almost free off the waiver wire. So if you're in desperation mode, that's somebody that if he sneaks into the end zone and has 10 carries and 3 receptions, you could be okay.
That's a really good point. And to that point, we don't have to worry. You may not even need to use him in week 8, but look at week 9. The bye weeks for running backs on week 9 are insanely crazy. So yeah, that might be a jump ahead and get ahead of the waiver priority.
For sure.
Yeah. And looking at, Dearness on Thursday, anybody who kind of came in on a spell roll, Alex Collins, we know that Carson's coming back right at some point. I know there's no official timetable, but Chubb practiced today, and that's going to have a pretty big impact. moving forward now with anybody who was relying on, if it's D'Ernest or anybody else that in a backup capacity. Now you have Chubb coming back without, and this is what I think is the interesting element, right? Because we don't have Kareem Hunt, but if Chubb is back this week, we already know that the game plan has been, with or without Baker Mayfield, run the hell out of the football. And when one guy's tired, you bring the other guy in. When he's tired, you bring the other guy back. Is that still going to be the case where somebody like D'Ernest Johnson's going to get looks and carries in that Kareem Hunt capacity? Or do you all think that this is going to be just especially because of the quarterback situation, just a heavier lean on Nick Chubb? So anybody rostering Nick Chubb is loving that, but maybe this is a trap to think that there are going to be a ton of carries going around simply because of the nature of how Cleveland runs the ball. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. If you have D'Ernest Johnson, he's pretty highly rostered. Everyone did jump on that. Don't drop him. I wouldn't be dropping him in this situation.
I would say you're probably going to be looking at a guy who gets some significant work. He's good. And at this rate, what's the point of exhausting Nick Chubb and giving him, 25 carries every game if you don't really have to, right? That's like Derrick Henry has needed to get those carries outside of yesterday. And I think what did he still have, like 26 carries or something insane yesterday? Even though he didn't produce, he was still used a ton on the ground. That's how they grind clock. That's how they wear down defenses. Nick Chubb, similar to Derrick Henry, is a second half monster because no one wants to tackle him once you get to the fourth quarter. It's not fun tackling Nick Chubb, but it certainly didn't look like much fun tackling D'Ernest Johnson either. Nope. And I don't see how he's not involved. They've got the Steelers this week. So hold on a second. They got the Steelers this week. Then they got the Bengals, the Patriots, then the Lions. And Kareem Hunt, you would assume, is back at a certain point sooner or later. But D'Ernest Johnson had 72 receptions at South Florida in college. So he can catch. I don't think you're going to see Nick Chubb's role change a ton, but it's not like you're worried that D'Ernest Johnson is going to come in and take away a larger piece of the pie than Kareem Hunt did. So if Chubb's back this week against the pretty porous Pittsburgh offense, given that the Browns should be able to run the ball quite frequently, another 18 to 22 carries is probably in store for him. I mean, I'm going to be playing him everywhere. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
All right. Lastly, Zach Wilson with the finger injury. That team is cooked as is, but still looking at what happened now, I mean, I don't know if you were relying on Wilson each and every week, you're probably not in a great spot. But then again, depending on how people drafted, I get that. The obvious question is, what else do you have? Were you just streaming quarterbacks? That's probably more of the reality here. So Wilson being out, Lofty, kind of the trickle-down effect that we see with this offense that has just been rough, to say the least, with the Jets.
Man, Corey Davis made such a nice corner end zone touchdown reception that they were trying to say was offensive pass interference. It wasn't. It got held up. But he's still good. And when you lose Zach Wilson, I truly don't know how much of a downgrade at this point it is to Mike White. I don't. Okay. What did they lose? They got 50 dropped on him yesterday.
Oh, it was awful. Total hit, 10 minutes left in the third, that total hit.
Yeah. But if this is going to continue to be the case, I think the wide receivers and the skill players will still have some viability. Michael Carter was targeted how many times? I think he had 8 or so receptions. Like, these guys are going to be involved no matter what. If that is the case, I'm okay with it, because Zach Wilson's been so bad that we have to, people were trying to act like Tyrod Taylor to Davis Mills wasn't a big drop off. Nonsense. It's a huge drop off. Tyrod Taylor was actually playing really well, all things considered, right? Like, relatively speaking, he wasn't.
They got a win.
Yeah. He smoked Jacksonville. He was playing well. And before he got injured against Buffalo, that game was competitive. Not saying it would have stayed competitive, but Tyrod Taylor, and when he returns, he will be the starter, by the way. They just said that. But I don't think it's a big enough downgrade. Like, Michael Carter is getting the majority of opportunities now. He had 8 receptions and 20 total looks yesterday. I'm just going to keep playing him because if you're Mike White, you're going to check down to those guys. And if you're Corey Davis, you'll probably soak up if you can get away from Corey Davis, I'd get away from him. But Michael Carter, I'll probably still keep playing him if I need him. Of course, this is all relative to what your team looks like. Did you know Mike White only had 0.7 fantasy points less than Patrick Mahomes yesterday?
Well,
ooh, yeah,
it took that has to be a career low for Mahomes in fantasy points, right?
Yeah,
gotta be.
I would think so.
Unless they had games where they just rushed a lot of touchdowns in and wasn't needed. But I don't know. Where are you at on the Jets right now, Tara? Like, how big of a drop off do you think it is from Zach Wilson to Mike White?
So I will say, full disclosure, I am someone who actually took him in a dynasty league startup this year, and yeah,
Wilson, not White, right?
No, Wilson. Yeah, Wilson.
Right.
Yeah. And he has not been usable whatsoever. But yeah, I don't think it's a huge drop off, honestly, because Wilson has some things that he needs to work through. And if anything, I think it probably benefits the running game, not from a perspective that they're going to get more on the ground. It's probably still going to be very low yardage, but I mean, from a PPR perspective, oh my God, I think they're going to have a ton of work. We could get to the point where we're seeing an easy 10 targets for Michael Carter. Even Ty Johnson had a good amount of targets as well, 6 of 7 for 65 yards. So yeah, from that perspective, I think that we're going to see, Mike White leaning a lot on those running backs, pass catching out of the backfield.
Ty Johnson had a goal line carry too, which sucks if you're a Michael Carter owner, but yeah, I think so too. They don't have to be efficient to get volume. Just give me as much volume in the passing game to Michael Carter and we'll be fine, because if you're catching 7-8 balls per game, even 6, that's as good as a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not going away. The Jets are going to be down consistently.
Oh yeah. They stay
by all means. So let's get this in real quick. Mark on the chat has an interesting question. I know as far as Darren Waller's absence, looking at a replacement at the tight end spot for week 8. So if both of you have a solid tight end, he even offered up a couple: Cook, Uzoma, Frymuth, Arnold, Mo Alley Cox, Evan Engram, Ross's guy. If there's anybody that would jump out as a great stream option for tight end spot, Raiders didn't even need him. That's how bad it was against the Eagles. But for Mark and others who drafted Waller earlier than later, I think that they definitely need some help here. So look, CJ jumped off. He had a huge game for the Bengals. I don't know how sustainable either of you think that is, but is there a name, Tara, if you want to jump at it, Lofty too, is there a name that you think from at least available to competent as far as a replacement for Darren Waller?
Yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to Uzama. I think that I know it's crazy, but when you look at those guys that are getting that same kind of production that Robert Tonyan was getting last year, we do see where it's realistic that they can keep doing that throughout the entire year when you're in a very potent offense. But I mean, I'm not opposed to looking at Foster Moreau. I'm really not. He performed very well, serviceable, 6 of 6, 60 yards, a touchdown. From that perspective, I think the usage of the tight end position, no matter who it is, now granted, Waller is fantastic, but no matter who it is, they're going to utilize that position. It's baked into their game plan, and it's such a huge part of it. So they can't really pivot away from it, especially if maybe Josh Jacobs is out as well. So they'll want to utilize that tight end position. And I think you can just do a 1-for-1 swap there and feel comfortable.
It's like the Browns running game, right, Lofty, where the strategy doesn't change.
Yeah, I'm with Tara here. I mean, the only thing that sucks is they're on a bye, but Darren Waller, when you look at this guy's snaps, right? He was playing 94%, 92, 93, 96, 82, playing an insane amount of snaps. He's on the field. He's running routes on like 85% of dropbacks this season. So do you know how many percent of snaps Foster Moreau played yesterday? 100. He played every single offensive snap for the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm okay with that. And then if you look at routes run data over at PFF, you're looking at a guy who, let's see here, among everybody ran 30 routes. That was tied with Henry Ruggs, and it was 3 fewer than Brian Edwards. I mean, think about that. Derek Carr only dropped back 35 times. So yeah, Foster Moreau was heavily involved in the offense. If you have a holdover option for one more week, I'd be looking. And granted, we don't know if Darren Waller is going to play or not. So if he's back and he has the bye week to recover, then all of this is moot. But if not, yeah, I think Foster Moreau is going to be like legitimately startable from week to week. I can't say I'm stoked on Robert Tonyan right now. Like, he had a solid game, but he's been mostly a non-factor. Zach Ertz, though, dude, gotta love it. He comes in and he's on a high-powered offense. He was targeted 5 times, mind you. 5 targets in an Arizona offense is probably better than 7 targets in an Eagles offense.
Maybe even 8 or 9 or 10 or
yeah. I mean, it's I don't know the actual,
but he was getting targeted though.
But he's getting quality targets. They can open the field up, and we saw a big catch and run for a 47-yard touchdown. I have no problem with Zach Ertz either.
All right, we got a couple stock up, stock downs, and when I say a couple, Tera and I each have one. But full Lofty mode is in effect here, where he has like everybody on the waiver wire. I know you will. I know you'll blow through them by all means.
I got excited.
You did. Chris is here to like, you sure you don't want to just give me one? And then you had to give the huge inhale, like, I can't.
I couldn't narrow it down.
All right. Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed, of course, to the Fantasy Football channel. The link below, it's right below this video. You can even click it, and the video will stay open. You can listen to us as you're signing up for Yahoo. Take advantage of, not only are you going to get $10 free for Yahoo contest with that first link, but new users are going to get 1 month of Awesemo Plus Platinum absolutely free. All right, let's hit it. Stock up, stock down. Let's start with stock up. And who is the best option right now for you, Tera?
I mean, we touched on it. For me, it's Samaje Perine, whose stock is really on the rise here. In my opinion, I think that maybe Cincinnati was planning to use Joe Mixon in a very heavy usage towards the beginning of the season. He was getting a lot of carries. And I think that as they're continuing forward, and they maybe didn't plan out for being this good, perhaps, and being able to make a legitimate run in the playoffs. And if they're going to be able to do that, they want to save Joe Mixon up for the back half of the schedule. They want to save him up for the playoffs. And I think what we're going to see is a tilt towards limiting those Mixon snaps, not because there's anything wrong with him, but just to keep him healthy moving forward, and throwing a little bit more over to Samaje Perine. Mixon was completely healthy this game, and Perine saw 11 carries for 52 yards, 1 touchdown. Snap count was just under 50%. So I really think that we're going to see him as someone that we want to stash moving forward.
Yeah, he was already before Mixon dealt with that injury. It seemed like Samaje Perine was already getting a little bit more involved in the passing game. And then he was placed on the COVID-19 list. So it was hard to say what you were going to get out of him in his return. But yeah, he played almost 50% of snaps. How much of that, Tera, do you think has to do with the blowout? Because I know the long touchdown run towards the end of the game, they were up by a heap of points. Do you think this could be, I don't want to say it's never going to be a 50-50 split, but do you think we could be looking at a situation where Perine's getting like 10 touches per game?
I think it's very possible. I think, moving forward, especially when you consider a blowout and we've got Baltimore here, I think they're a lot more real than we thought, and probably they thought as well. So I see no reason why moving forward, they won't be in a position to be able to limit this workload and not have to rely on him so heavy.
I like it.
All right, I'm going to go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'm going to get mine out of the way to give you more time. And also I want to be short and sweet here, because I know Tara's going to come back to him as well on the waivers, and I'll let her kind of expound a little bit more. But look, this is I'll hit the obvious, and Tara can hit the more detailed stuff. Kenneth Gainwell, Kenny G, whatever you want to call him, he's going to get a lot more opportunity already inserted in this offense. Red zone, 2-minute drill. We know that Nick Sirianni loves him some Gainwell. Even now, there's going to be a lot of Gainwell. Yes, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, maybe they pick somebody up, but Kenny Gainwell all day. Now, take it away, my friend. If you need like a big inhale, 30 seconds to inhale, I can always do a read or something.
I'm going to go quick. And Chris,
do we have a stopwatch or something, Chris? Can we put a clock up here for Lofty?
Chris brought it to my attention that he put Lofty's Band of Merry Men up on the screen. So let's roll with it. All right, look, I'm going to go quick. A.J. Brown. How do you not love what you've seen from him? I did not expect Julio Jones to play this week, given that he had yet another hamstring injury, but A.J. Brown was the man once again. He now has back-to-back 9-target games, 15 receptions over his last 2, and 224 receiving yards and a score. He is back. And if you feel good about that, which you should, you're going to begin to see more volume, very concentrated offense in Tennessee. You have to love that, right? Especially if Julio's not 100%. AJ Brown, everyone was worried about him. I had people saying, like, do I sit him? Do I drop him? Insanity. No, you keep playing him, especially now that the Titans look like they figured out whatever was ailing them early in the season, and they are legit. So stock up on AJ Brown. Stock up on Michael Carter. Tara and I talked about it. I don't care if it's Mike White or Zach Wilson at this point. All I care about is opportunities, because volume is king. And if you're going to be targeting him and you're going to struggle to move the ball and you're going to be playing from behind and he's your clear pass catching back, Michael Carter's got to be that guy. And I still think they will try to establish some type of run game, even if it doesn't work, namely with Michael Carter, a guy they drafted in the 4th round, but there was projections that he would end up being the number 1. And then Eli Mitchell, Trey Sermon, sorry, guy, but I mean, this is clearly Eli Mitchell's backfield. It's crazy. I love it because I drafted him in a ton of dynasty leagues this year and just kind of lucked out. 18 carries, 107 yards, bad second half, but still, like, this is the guy. If you have Eli Mitchell and you plucked him from the waiver wire, you're holding on to him, or you could try to trade him in dynasty leagues, because I don't know if he's the long-term guy, but right now in season-long leagues, you're holding on to him. And then Michael Pittman Jr., there's a lot you could say bad about Pittman Jr., like Carson Wentz shovel passing or pitching to the opposing team inside his own 10-yard line. But Pittman's the real deal. He's legit. I know his target counts have been low the past couple of weeks, but look at some of the massive plays he makes. 57-yard grab over the defender, beautiful touchdown yesterday. They have an easy schedule coming up. Pittman's a guy that I'm looking to trade for because some big games are on the horizon, and Paris Campbell and T.Y. Hilton just can't stay healthy. How was that, Eytan? That wasn't too bad for 4 players, right?
I'm impressed. I did not think that you could do that. And Tara, Laffy is the king of, okay, real quick, and then that real quick taking like 5 minutes to explain. So that's, the clock was working against him. And I have to be honest, he nailed it. I know there were about 50 things he said. Was there anything or 2 or 10 things that jumped out for you? That was well done, though, by the way.
No, I love it. I especially love the Michael Pittman part as well, because he's one of those guys who off season, despite the fact that he was clearly going to be in contention for the number 1 wide receiver on his team, that people are kind of fading and called just a guy. He's not that talented. And he's someone who I do, in fact, want to roster. I do feel comfortable in my starting lineup. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
Okay, so let's swing it back from stock up to stock down. Who are you most down on through 7 weeks, or just recency bias as well?
It's Robby Anderson. I think he kind of fooled us with that target increase, unfortunately. Week 4, he had 11 targets, 5 catches. Week 6, 11 targets, 3 catches. And then, of course, right now we've got 3 of 9. I mean, he's getting a ton of targets, but it's just not working out. With 3 of 9 this week, he only had 14 receiving yards. It's kind of crazy. It's not usable. I just don't feel like we can start him, and I don't really see it changing.
It's over. I mean, here's the only good thing you can say about Robby Anderson, right? So there's always, oftentimes when it comes to fantasy football, there's 2 sides to everything. On one hand, Robby Anderson has been dismal when it comes to converting targets into receptions. I mean, it's actually hard to even process how bad he's been. I mean, think about this. What does he have? 12 receptions over his last 4 games on 11, 7, 11, and 9 targets. So 38 targets. Wow. 38 targets. Mm-hmm. The guy does not have 100 yards combined over his last 4 games. But again, 9 targets, 11 targets, 11 targets, 7 targets. This team stinks right now. Their defense doesn't look good. Is the volume still going to be there? So if someone trades you, this is where I'm going slightly against Tara here. If someone offers to trade you, like, they just want to get Robby Anderson away from their team, and they're ignoring the fact that at least he's getting volume, I would take, they might just give him to you for essentially nothing, or a speculative play. And if that's the case, I'd probably bite and then just stash him away on the roster and hope that Carolina has to keep playing from behind, because as much as it sucks, as bad as he has been, like, hold on, let me see where he's at in terms of targets since week 4. All right. So since week 4, he's got to be I'd have to pull it up over here. I don't know. It's going to take me a second, but since week 4, he's got to be like top 20 in the league in targets. Yeah. That's the only thing I would say. Sorry, go ahead.
We know a timeline on Terrace Marshall's injury returning.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Do you think that would eat into it?
It might. It's not like he had a ton of targets, but he did have a ton of time on the field. He did have a decent snap count. So, that might have been something as well that kind of created this opportunity for targets.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. So let me just see. Okay, here he is. He's 8th. He's tied for 7th in targets over the last 4 weeks. It's just insane inefficiency.
Is that right?
Yeah.
7?
Yeah. Insane inefficiency.
It's such a boom bust right there too, because you're right. The targets are there, but the productivity clearly not. All right, I'll skip through mine as we're winding down. I know we have some waiver wire pickups to hit, and a lot of people always asking about where to look at and who to hit on the waiver wire. But before that, who's down for you, Lofty? Stock down.
Oh man, it pains me to say this, but it's Allen Robinson. It sucks. I'm the biggest Allen Robinson truther. Anyone that can do what he's done with Blake Bortles and Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles and Chase Daniel, you'd really am I wrong to think he could have done it with Justin Fields? Apparently. Apparently, I
might
wish
be the coaching too, but yes.
Oh yeah, Matt Nagy. I'll tell you what, though. Have you ever seen more people adamantly run cover for and defend the quarterback than what we see on Twitter for Justin Fields? I'm not saying they're wrong necessarily, but I can't remember the last time I've seen a quarterback get so much cover run for him. Maybe it probably is mostly Nagy, but when you turn the ball over 5 times in a game, you still deserve some criticism, no?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish it was Andy Dalton just for this year. Because Andy Dalton would go crazy targeting Allen Robinson. We know it. He targeted AJ Green 176 times in a season. He would pepper him with targets, but the protection's not good. Justin Fields is a deer in headlights right now, and the play calling from Matt Nagy sucks. So as much as I love Allen Robinson, back-to-back 150-plus target seasons, back-to-back top 10 wide receiver seasons, despite poor quarterbacking, you just have to bench him. If you could – even if you drop them for certain players, it's not the craziest idea. I hate to say it, but he's been that bad.
Yeah, completely agree. It'll be interesting to see if maybe what happens because Nagy might not be able to be on the field. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this week.
That's a good call. Do you think Nagy's actually the one calling all the plays? He has to be, right?
Yeah, supposedly it changed over, but he's still got a grip on it. So it'll be, I don't know. Maybe we might learn a lot this week.
Look, so you're saying go back to Allen Robinson?
Yeah. Give him one more go.
Exactly. All right, let's look at this. We wind down here. Waiver wires, week 8. Who to look at, who to pick up. Everybody's always asking on the chat, what do you think? Tight end spot, wide receiver spot. Don't ask Lofty about quarterbacks, but why don't you kick things off? Waiver wire, week 8, brother.
Well, it's got to be, and I said this earlier, Kenyon Drake I like, but it's week 8 and he's on a bye. So there's not a ton here that I'm obsessed with. And I know Tara will talk about a couple of these guys that I think we all like, but deep league, it's Boston Scott, going back to what I said earlier, and only because you can use him as a streaming option against a Detroit team that is absolutely heinous. I don't know. Actually, I would almost venture to say I'm almost certain that you won't see the Eagles in as favorable a matchup all season long. They have a 25-point implied total. I don't think we get back there, Eytan. I don't.
No.
They're one. Or I'm sorry. Wait. Let me find it. They had a 25-point total against the Raiders. So they've got to have. I'm assuming they have an even higher total against the Detroit Lions. All in all, I think there's enough for everyone to thrive here. Boston Scott ran 12 routes last game. I think he probably runs around 18 in this one. I think that's a fair number. If you're in a deep league with injuries to your running backs, which so many people have, he would be the guy, and you're going to get him for peanuts on the waiver wire.
That's the big thing, right? Getting somebody for as cheap as humanly possible. I'm going to sneak in one. Tara, you can take us home. But I know personally, because I gave up on him weeks ago, in Russell Gage, had a huge game. The offense, if it's back and cooking, then clearly there's going to be targets. There's going to be opportunity. It's not just going to be Ridley, although he gets on the board as far as a touchdown is concerned. I would definitely, if you need help at the wide receiver position, this is a team that has always been throwing. And now with Gage involved, he's a sneaky option that you can slide in for buys. So I'll leave you with that. Russell Gage, Tara, take it home. Waiver wires, week 8, all yours.
Yes. Before I dive into it, I 100% agree. I'm really big on Gage as well. He's probably up there in my top 5 of ads this week, so completely agree. But
take your time, by the way. If you'd like to agree with the point I make, that by all means, I will not stop you. We could go late even. I apologize.
For sure. No problem. But yeah, I've got 3 guys. We talked about, I'll go relatively quick here. Kenneth Gainwell, we talked about again.
Yeah.
He had 5 carries for 20 yards. But again, it's those targets that really matter to me. It's those 4. He was 4 of 8 with 1 touchdown. In my opinion, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the timeline for Miles Sanders. We, hopefully we'll know before the waivers run on Wednesday, but I would go and assume that this is going to be at least a 3-week play. And he's someone that I am prioritizing. He would be my number 1 this week. Although I do agree, especially if you're looking to, I do agree. I think Loffy has convinced me that Boston Scott is of value as an ad as well. So I'll agree with you on there. You convinced me. But my second one right there is Darius Slayton. I probably speak more positively about Daniel Jones than any human being on earth. I don't mind him as a streaming quarterback. I really don't. And if I'm saying start Daniel Jones as an option, I got to go with his receivers too. So we've got Galladay that's out. We've got Shepard that re-injured his hamstring. We've obviously got Saquon that's out. That's a big target recipient as well. So from that perspective, I think you have to go with Darius Slayton. Pettis is an option as well, but I would prioritize Slayton based on the fact that 1, he's got a track record. He has the experience and he's proven his value within this offense. And then he was on the field more, quite frankly. So 9 targets, caught 5 of those 9 targets were 63 yards. So I think he's a great option as well. I would prioritize him maybe behind Gage. I don't know. It's very close there. And then my last one, no bias here. I'm a Clemson grad, but my last one is Hunter Renfrow. I'm a huge advocate for Hunter Renfrow because he's not a flashy player. He's not a boom player, but he's one of those guys that he's so consistent. He's such a solid floor. And I think what we're seeing is here to stay, because if you look at what makes him a value, he's someone who's averaging just over 7 targets per game, but the catch rate is what really matters here. He's got a 74.5% catch rate. And it's not an anomaly. He was over 70% last year as well. So it's this increase in play time and targets combined with that catch rate. It's just playing out so well on the field. So he's someone that I definitely want on my team moving forward.
So just to be clear, I have 4 players and I get killed for them. Tara goes with a laundry list of players, but everybody's okay with it. All right. I see how it works.
Well, it's her first day. She deserves a benefit of the doubt. Yeah. And we know your MO already. You've been guilty of sneaking in this real quick, and it not being anything real or quick.
Actually, really quick, before we go, Chase Edmonds, if you're looking to get a trade target, I did want to hit on this.
Yes.
If you're looking to get a trade target and get him as cheap as you possibly can, go get Chase Edmonds. They're on an amazing team. He played the large majority of snaps yesterday, and it looked like James Conner was getting more opportunities, and he did score. Chase Edmonds was off the injury report all week for the first time in like a month. I think that shoulder was bothering him. If you can get him for virtually nothing, and I'm assuming you'll get him cheap, he's never going to be the goal line back. That's why they brought Conner in. But I think you start to see some positive regression from Chase Edmonds. If you need a running back, that might be a guy I'm looking to.
Now, to be fair, it's never like you go off and just ramble. You're always bringing information with these
salient points. Yes, I like to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I give you all the
credit. I believe it's not just
just talking. Right. No, I'm guilty of that by all means. All right, it's Tera time for Tera on Twitter, @Loffy_D, @Shander Show for me. Thank you all for hanging with us. Thanks to Chris for producing. Thanks to Yahoo. Click those links below. $10 free on Yahoo and 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Just hit that thumbs up button and subscribe on the way out. Thanks to both of you. Fun time for sure. And we'll see you all Friday. Sorry. Right? Yeah, Friday we're back. Have a great week.